Hey there, writing buddies. Michael here with another video from Mr. Swaim. In today's video, I'm going to be going over the commonly used but less commonly understood phrase, show don't tell. What people typically mean by this is that when relaying information to the reader, it is more powerful to show them rather than just tell them. Let's look at some examples so we can get a handle on what we're talking about here. Jill ran home. Jill hurtled over the hedge, heart pounding in her chest as she raced home. Billy ate the pie. With only his hands, Billy tore through the entire blueberry pie, leaving his face a purple mess. Okay, which one came off as more visual to you? The second one, right? Now, why is that? Well, it's pretty simple. Giving a few extra details along with some stronger verbs will be able to convey a lot more information and give a lot more emotion to our scenes rather than just telling what happened. As authors, we are in this kind of balancing act between trying to have as few words as possible, but then also convey as much meaning as we can. Strong verbs along with figurative language can paint a very vivid picture in the reader's mind. Before I go into when to show and when to tell, go ahead and hit that like button down below if you find the video helpful. It'll help others find it, and I really appreciate that. Thank you. While it is more impactful to show rather than just tell, there is a time and place for both. So let's go into when to tell. In scenario one, this is going to be what I would say is probably the most common use of telling, and that is to convey some sort of passage of time. In a lot of books, the action, the narration just follows right along with the characters, especially if the story is happening in a very finite amount of time. It's like it's 24 hours. That's all. The entire book happens in 24 hours, let's say. But there are some times where there's periods of downtime, and nothing that is very crucial to the story, plot, character building, world building. There are times when there's really just nothing happening. Good example of this would be Billy packed his bags and flew to Phoenix. This indicates that Billy did exactly what it says he did. And that there was basically nothing of interest that happened in between that. Now, if something were to happen on the flight, the line might read instead, Billy packed his bags and boarded his plane. And then at that time, the narration can pick back up and we can be shown the events that happen on the flight while they're actually happening. The second type of scenario in which I would tell rather than show is when I've already done the work and shown what I'm talking about. Now, an example of this might be something like, that creeping cold returned. This is a line I would only use if I've already done the work in establishing what that creeping cold is. So the first time the characters experienced it, I went into, a good amount of detail. I've established what it really means. This is probably a reoccurring feeling that the character gets. Maybe they're like a ghost whisperer, or maybe it's like a danger presence, like it's what they feel when they're around evil or something like that, right? Whatever. So the reader knows more, they know more information than that line gives them, okay? Because we've already established it in the past. So I've at least done it once. I've probably done it a couple times, maybe even, 3 or 4. But at some point, I don't really need to continuously over-explain what that feeling is, because the reader knows. The last example here is one where what I'm describing is so generally well known that I'm not going to embellish really. So an example of this might be pines and spruce made up most of the forest. Since pines and spruce trees are, generally well known, I'm not going to spend a lot of time investing, words that I need to be saving, right? We're doing this balancing act, right? So I'm trying to save my words for when they can be used at a better time. And I'm not going to really embellish what a pine tree or spruce tree looks like, since my reader typically knows what that is. If it goes any deeper than that, if my character is just walking through the forest, that's, I would use that line. But if it was more like my character climbed up one of those trees, then I am going to go into more detail about how, rough it felt, how the bark, snapped, or like the bark was brittle or whatever, right? I might go into more detail about how it feels to go up the tree, how the branches were shaking under the weight, whatever. So that would be a time where I would go into more detail. But if they're just walking through the forest and like the trees don't really interact with the story other than just it's where they are, then I'm not really going to go into any more detail than that. Now, when do we show? Every other time. There we go. That's it. Video done. We're all done here. Seriously though, whenever we're not summarizing, that's when we want to be showing. That's basically one of the best ways I can remember of how to do this. If I'm summarizing, I'm telling. If I'm not summarizing, I'm showing. Something to watch out for when we are trying to show, but we end up telling, and that comes through filtering words. Anything such as looked, smelt, heard, tasted, touched, any of those are filtering words. And I know that that was just the 5 senses, but those are words where we are saying, you know, Jack touched the ball. You know, Stacy heard the phone ring, right? Those are things that we are filtering the experience through the character to the reader. So we are just telling them. So rather than them hearing the phone ring, we are just telling them that Stacy heard the phone ring. These words will sneak into our writing so often. I've seen it a ton. I've done it a ton. So when you see that pop up in your writing, if you're going back through your manuscript and you see one of those words that's filtering the sensations through the character, ask yourself, am I summarizing right now, or am I trying to show this to am I actually trying to show this to the reader? So some examples of these would be like John smelt the fresh baked bread, Tina heard the birds chirp, but let's go ahead and show you how I would fix that so that way you kind of understand ways to get around this. The scent of fresh baked bread wafted over John, tugging him to find the source. The sparrows sang outside Trina's window with trills and chirps that lifted her heart. That last one a little too Disney? Yeah, a little bit, huh? Now with showing and telling, again, we're in this balancing act between, you know, as few words as possible with as much meaning as possible. So there really is always a time for telling and there's always a time for showing, but in general, show, don't tell. Let me know down in the comments below how you deal with showing and telling. And if you like the video, go ahead and subscribe for more content. I put videos on here almost every single day. Until the next one, happy writing, happy reading.